The normal web designer has created an RSS feed for us, and now I am happy to show you. If you look up on the screen there in the lower left-hand side, you'll see Normal News, and it's at number 31 in the iTunes Politics category. And it has been as high as number 4, it's been as low as number 78, but it has hung out between 12 and 50 pretty much consistently every single week. And the most important thing about this is, look who's above and below us here. Hang on one sec. So beating Normal News is Mother Jones Radio. I don't mind if they beat us. KCRW's left, right, and center, great. I'd love to see them up in the top 3 every day. No problem at all. But below us, you will find Hillary Clinton. You'll find the Supreme Court OEA project. You see right there on the left-hand side of your screen, you'll see BBC The World is below us. These are heavy media organizations. Sean Hannity, who is in this category as well, he's beating us today. These gentlemen and women in the media get to use multi-million-dollar media networks to promote their podcasts. Normal is a grassroots effort from the get-go. There has been no promotion of this podcast other than people telling other people about it. And the success of it is making BBC and C-SPAN and CNN scratch their heads and go, who is Normal? Why is this content so popular? And I think one of the things about the high-tech world and the ability to do podcasts and websites and video blogging that is so interesting is that large media organizations have shut Normal out of advertising. They have shut marijuana advocacy organizations out of radio and TV ads. Maui is a great example of that not happening anymore, and it's great to see that Maui is getting those radio ads out there. But largely, organizations that we're now competing with wouldn't take Normal's advertising dollars. Now this is the real big deal about podcasting and the high-tech world. This is turning the tables on mainstream media, because now we are the media. Normal is the media. Normal News and the daily podcast that's going to come online, we don't need to cater to mainstream media and tailor our programming so that it's acceptable to their idea of family content. Normal can produce content and put voices in our podcasts and faces in video blogs and things like that that are on the site that we want to. We can share the message we want to. And again, it turns the tables. The same media organizations that wouldn't take Normal's money for advertising are now wondering how they're going to compete with Normal News. When is Normal News going to start taking their advertising dollars away from them? And this is the biggest effect and the biggest turnaround in media probably in American history, because it puts the power of the media into the individual's hands as long as you can afford a computer. I hate to put it that way, but if you can finance a Dell, you're probably good to go. With me today is Steve Young. He's contributed to drugsense.org. It's one of the most popular internet websites out there. If you look it up on Alexa, which is a ranking service out there, you'll see it way at the top, especially when it comes to drug policy. People are seeking out this content like there's no tomorrow because they can't get it anywhere else. Now, about 4 months ago, I got a lot of hits to my own website from the ONDCP, the State Department, the Department of Justice, and the White House. And it's because they brought the ONDCP podcast online. They were doing a little opposition research out there. But you won't see the ONDCP podcast ranked because it's not popular. Because you can see the ONDCP ads on TV every night. You don't need to go out and look for ONDCP content. But people are searching out Normal's content. They're searching out drugsense.org content at unprecedented levels. Why? Because these Normal and other organizations have been shut out of mainstream media. Now it's time to take the power back. Now, we're starting a daily podcast called the Normal Audio Stash that'll come up online about 3 weeks after this conference. What I ask everybody to do is if you ever thought about adding your voice to this movement, your real voice, now's the time. I've got my email address. It's very easy. It's normalpodcast@yahoo.com. Send me an email if you're interested in adding your voice. I think the best representation of this movement is the variety and diversity of voices that we can find to present. And with the daily podcast, I mean, people aren't coming to Normal News for Kris Krane. They're coming to Normal News for real marijuana policy information. You can't, Paul Armentano writes the press release every week. He does an absolutely spectacular job. You won't find, I am in news media. I read the Associated Press newswire all day long. And what Paul finds out there, you won't find anywhere else. It's incredible. He really digs out there. And what he supplies for content, what the organization supplies for content, is truly compelling. I don't need to tell you that. You can see it up here. You can see it that we're number 31 out of 100. Again, let's scroll down one more time and take a look at who we're beating, who are scratching their heads going, oh wait, here's the ACLU, we just passed them. And here's Supreme Court Watch. I don't know why the WWE is in politics. I never considered wrestling politics myself. But we consistently beat the Republican National Committee, the Democratic National Committee. They're all between 50 and 100. Normal news is above 50. And again, that shows a compelling demand for marijuana-related content. Frankly, if you make honest marijuana-related content, it's going to be popular because people can't find it anywhere else. So you have to do it well. I mean, High Times is great, but their podcast is inconsistent. And you need to have consistent information out every week, every day. It needs to be professionally produced. If you can help me by adding your voice to our podcast, just email me, normalpodcast@yahoo.com. Also to speak with you today is Steve Young. Again, he's the contributor to drugsense.org, one of the most popular websites on the internet. And he helps write the copy and contributes to a lot of the interactive content up there. Steve, welcome to our panel here today.
Thank you very much.
Oh, okay, here, why don't you welcome up to our link.
Thank you very much, Chris. Chris talked quite a bit about becoming the media yourself, and that is an excellent strategy. There's nothing wrong with that. But in the meantime, the mainstream media still does exist, and most people get most of their information from the mainstream media. So what DrugSense does, we do a variety of projects, but our probably most well-known project is the Media Awareness Project, and you can find information about it at mapinc.org. I've got some pamphlets up here about all our services if you want to come and get them afterwards. But what MAP does is, it's been around for about 10 years, and the concept is that the original concept is that part of the problem, marijuana prohibition, drug prohibition in general, is that there's a lot of bad information out there. And the media, the mainstream media, isn't very good at discerning good information from bad information sometimes. So about 10 years ago, some of my colleagues got together and said, what we're going to do is start archiving news stories about drugs. And we're going to archive them so the record is there, because you know sometimes prohibitionists forget history. They'll say, you know, this marijuana is much stronger than it was 20 years ago. And if you go back 20 years ago, they said it was much stronger than it was 20 years before that, and so on. So, and before the internet, it was hard to sort of document that unless you're a clipping service or whatever. And so what we've done is we've taken those stories, and on a volunteer basis, people send us stories. When they see something that they think is important, they can email it to us at editor@mapinc.org. And we have humans working there who decide whether it's appropriate for our service or not. We have so much news. Like right now, on a good day, we might distribute 70 or 80 stories. On a slower day, maybe 30 or 40. And there was times, like after the Angel Rage decision came, when we were getting 200 or 300 stories a day. So we have to be a little bit selective. There are humans who edit and decide what sort of stories are appropriate. We don't like to use just plain old drug bust stories. Someone was arrested for half an ounce or whatever. But we are very interested in policy and more interesting bust stories. And what we encourage people to do is, if you read a story in your local newspaper or a magazine, any sort of print media, and even I know TV stations have websites where they'll put up stories now, we encourage you to send that to us. And then if we think it's appropriate for our audience, we will redistribute it to people. And then the next step is that we encourage people to respond to the media. Whether the information is good or bad, we encourage you to respond to that media, write a letter to the newspaper, the magazine, or whatever, and say, this is good information because, or say, this is bad information. Or what happens more commonly now is that this is you almost got it, but not quite. 10 years ago, when we started, I'd say the ratio of bad information to good information about drugs, I don't know, I'll say 95 to 5. And I'd say maybe now we're up to 90-10.